The internet has revolutionized the way we shop. More and more of us are going online to buy food, clothes, gadgets, almost anything you can think of. We expect this stuff to get to our homes at ever faster speeds and cheaply. But do you ever think about the people whose job it is to deliver it to your door? Inside Out has been undercover at an Amazon depot. We have disturbing evidence that some agency drivers for the biggest online retailer in the world are being exploited.
It opened my eyes a lot, because no one deserves that. They're there to work.
We've found some drivers are put under so much pressure that they pose a danger to themselves and our roads.
I had to drive quick. I had to.
You don't have time, so you have to be fast all the time.
Our undercover reporter got a job at one agency supplying drivers to Amazon. We found that not all the vans provided by the agency are roadworthy.
If that steering was to fail, it endangers other people's lives, other road users' lives.
Our undercover reporter earned an hourly rate that's much less than the national minimum wage. And we've heard some agencies are withholding wages altogether.
There's not many people out there at the moment that can be £1,500 short in their bank account, and it is a lot of money to us.
It's a lot of money to us, yeah.
So what's the human cost of fast, cheap home delivery? As part of our investigation, we've spoken to many agency drivers who worked at Amazon's Avonmouth depot in Bristol.
It's really, really affected our lives big time.
Including Jenny and her fiancé Adam.
Especially with Jen, she worked really hard, and then when she gave up work to find out that she didn't get paid what she thought she would, you know, by somebody who we thought was a good company.
It's been terrible. It's been absolutely terrible.
The whole Amazon experience.
Andre Fetcheru worked as an agency driver for Amazon for 5 months and left in April this year.
I still have thoughts about Amazon because Amazon is controlling yourself, the agency is controlling yourself, so they take your money, they don't care how much time you work, they don't care about nothing. I have experience in a lot of jobs, I have management experience, and I never find a working place like this, never.
Amazon has nearly 300 million customers worldwide and is at the forefront of the e-commerce revolution. It currently has 10 fulfillment centres in the UK, vast warehouses where goods are stored then picked. Parcels are then sent to smaller distribution centres around the country, like the one in Avonmouth. Amazon is testing technology like this, with the aim that drones will eventually deliver to customers' homes. But for now, they use several courier companies to do the job. Amazon's delivery service, Amazon Logistics, has contracts with many different agencies who provide drivers and vans to this depot. We've heard lots of complaints about one agency in particular. It's called AHC Services. It's based in Oxford and provides drivers to Amazon depots around the south of England. What we heard from drivers about working conditions was so worrying that we sent an undercover reporter to get a job with AHC Services at the Avonmouth depot. Some drivers provide their own vans. Our driver, like many we spoke to, opted to hire one from the agency. But it's not in great shape. And when we ask a mechanic to check it over, he discovers a major problem.
There's excess play and wear on the offside, the driver's trotwood end, which renders the vehicle dangerous to drive. Because if that joint pops out, you completely lose the steering. If that steering was to fail, it endangers other people's lives, other road users' lives, and also pedestrians, because if that steering fails, you've got no control of the van whatsoever, and it's horrendous to think what could happen.
Left home at 7:15 this morning, but traffic was really bad, so it's taken me a while.
Our reporter tells the agency about the problems with the van and swaps it for one that is roadworthy. After 2 days of unpaid training with another driver, he spends 7 days delivering Amazon parcels. He's expected at the depot between 7:30 and 8 a.m. and spends about an hour each morning sorting his parcels. The number he must deliver and the route he follows is programmed by Amazon. Because he's new to the job, he's given fewer parcels to deliver, around 100 a day. Most other drivers he speaks to have between 150 and 200 parcels a day. He's told this number can go up to 300 around Christmas.
This is the device known as the Rabbit, or the Dora. Works like a sat-nav tracking system, and it plots your route for you.
An AHC supervisor tells him when Amazon program it, they allocate 3 minutes per drop. I want to find out more about his time working at the depot.
Hello, mate. Sorry. You all right? Yeah, good. How did you find it?
It was definitely one of the hardest jobs I've ever done. The route that's programmed by Amazon is very difficult to achieve because of all the things that aren't factored in, like traffic and customers being out. And I just found it impossible to do the route in the time that they think you should be able to do it.
How about the other drivers at the depot?
There's a few that finish at a reasonable time, but they've had the same route for sometimes years, so they know exactly where they're going, but they're in the minority. Most of the others are having a really hard time.
But were you deliberately driving slowly?
I wasn't, no. When it was safe to, I drove up to the speed limit. Between houses I would either walk quickly or jog.
You jogged between houses, did other drivers run?
Other drivers sprinted, they told me, yeah. But that mentality rubs off on their driving as well. One of the same drivers told me he drove at 120 down the motorway.
120 miles an hour?
Yeah. And he wasn't the only one, others said similar things. There's the pressure that if they don't get the job done, some of their pay might be deducted.
So what does all this pressure mean for our roads?
You didn't take care where you're parking, you grab your parcel and go very fast to deliver and to go to another place.
And did it make you a more dangerous driver?
Yeah, of course it makes you dangerous. You are very fast all the time. You don't have time. So you have to be fast all the time.
I had to drive quick. I had to. But then the way it was designed, automatically you're going to have to do that. A few crashes, I can say that, but not bad crashes, but yeah. Several times, I mean, driving on the motorway, a couple of drivers being pulled over by the police because of the speeding.
Our reporter relayed his concerns to one of the supervisors for AHC services, who acknowledged there was sometimes a need for speed.
It's not a job for everybody. Like some people, you've got to be prepared to put your foot down a little bit in some cases.
But then, we put our foot down. We're self-employed, and it's our license on the line,
exactly,
isn't it?
Yeah, that's the whole reason why everyone's self-employed. You're your own responsibility, really. But at the moment, the volume's quite high anyway. So it is like we're getting up to our busy period, and it's only going to get busier and busier. Christmas, everybody hates this job, but after it quiets down a bit and it gets a bit better.
Everyone's fairy on white van men. They drive like absolute idiots. Yeah, they do, because they just see we've got to get these parcels delivered or we won't get paid.
Cody worked as a supervisor for AHC services for 18 months and left last November.
And they're taking risks and also their own safety as well.
Yes, a lot would say it was easier not to wear your seatbelt because you're constantly in and out. So a lot, they wouldn't wear their seatbelt.
Our undercover reporter is obeying all the rules of the road, but he's considered too slow. So the AHC supervisor gives him some tips about how to get quicker.
And the most important one is not to say chat with the customers. Not to explain them, you know, you don't need to be nice. If you got any issues, please contact customer service. Thank you very much. Bye.
I'm not prepared to break the speed limit and not wear a seatbelt because it's my licence on the line at the end of the day.
Seatbelt, you don't need to wear it every time because you're a delivery driver. The police won't stop you.
Well, I don't think that's the law. My licence on the line at the end of the day.
Seatbelt, you don't need to wear it every time.
We showed our footage to a road safety expert.
Everything is being pushed. So you've got the pressure to not wear a seatbelt. Okay, legally there is an exemption which allows someone doing local deliveries to not wear a seatbelt. But that's really about really short journeys. We're talking about yards here, not fractions of a mile. The layers of safety are being stripped away. And stripping away layers of safety is another way of saying you're making it more dangerous.
How worried should we be about the safety on our roads?
These vans are being driven by these pressurised drivers, pressurised by companies, all this lack of understanding in amongst you and I and our families and our friends. We're all on the same bit of road space. The van drivers aren't the only people who don't drive well, but they're in amongst the rest of us.
Well, it's just after 8:30 and I've seen a lot of white vans near the Amazon depot. And as our undercover driver experienced, they start working pretty early in the morning. His hours were very long, something many former drivers say they experienced too.
One down. Quite a lot more to go.
Delivery drivers are subject to the domestic driver's hours rules. They're breaking the law if they spend more than 11 hours a day on duty, which means time spent driving or doing work related to the vehicle or its load. On all 7 of the days that our reporter worked following the route set by Amazon, after breaks he spent more than 11 hours on duty.
On the 3rd floor. How am I supposed to do that in 3 minutes? Is it up here? This is level 2. Where is the 3rd floor?
On 4 of the days, he spent around 13 hours on duty.
It's brought me down here. The road I need to be on is down there.
After completing his route, he drives an hour back to the depot to give in his scanner device and any undelivered parcels.
Yep.
Each time he leaves the depot, he's searched. And so is his van.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Did you get time for breaks?
No. If you take breaks, you don't finish the route. So you didn't have time, you have to eat in the van. You have to do everything in the van. It's like second home. So
Going to the toilet, having lunch?
in the van, you use a bottle inside of the van because you didn't have time and where to go to the toilet.
Adding peas in a bottle. There's not a lot a woman can do, is there?
They don't factor in any rest breaks. They don't factor in any toilet breaks. One driver told me he had to, on one occasion, go for a poo in the back of his van because
In
he
his
was so
van?
desperate, in the back of his van, in a bag, and because there was just nowhere for him to go, and he was desperate, and he doesn't want to put himself far behind by going out of his way to find a loo somewhere.
That's the amount of pressure.
Yeah.
No, he was working 7 days a week to start off with. It was long hours, 12, 15-hour days.
Yeah, sometimes we didn't get home until 11, 12 o'clock at night.
Back in depot for 7:30. Yeah, a lot of the time you wouldn't really have time in the day to
Didn't get
actually
time.
take a prolonged break because you'd always be trying to catch up and catch up and catch up.
We had one guy that he hadn't had not one single day off for 3 months, solid. So that was constant, you know, 7 days a week for 3 months driving on the road.
That's dangerous.
It's very dangerous, yeah. And I got more concerned when I received a call from a driver one afternoon and he told me he'd fell asleep at the wheel. I just kept thinking, it's coming up to school time. That could be a group of school children walking along the path and he could have, you know, he could have steered off whilst he was asleep. Anything could have happened. And I raised the alarm to some of the other guys and someone contacted him and told him he had to stay on the road and complete that route. It wasn't until I had to argue and say, no, he cannot be on the road. He will end up killing someone. He's already fell asleep at the wheel.
In a statement, AHC Services said it takes road safety and the welfare of its contracted drivers extremely seriously. Vehicles are thoroughly tested on a regular basis by an independent mechanic. Drivers are closely monitored to ensure they have the necessary training and insurance. Amazon told us its delivery providers are obligated to ensure that drivers do not spend more than 10 hours per day driving and that they use roadworthy vehicles. Over the last 6 months, the average total on-duty time for drivers in the UK is 9.1 hours per day. Drivers deliver at their own pace, take breaks at their discretion, and are able to choose the suggested route. Variables including speed limits and daily traffic patterns are taken into account when planning routes. So for all the hard work and long hours, what do the drivers get paid? Well, we've had 2 pay slips from our undercover reporter. Although more than a month after leaving, he still hasn't been paid by AHC Services. In the first week, he completes 3 routes and earns the fixed rate of £110 per day, even though he was delivering fewer parcels. But he didn't get the bonus of £10 a day. This isn't paid if the driver fails to complete a route. It's not explained why he didn't get the bonus. Because our driver opted to hire a van from the agency, there are deductions for that and insurance, which is third-party only with an excess of £5,000. Then an admin fee, vehicle insurance deposit and personal mileage. That would leave him with £93.47 for 3 days' work. On average, he would work about 12 hours a day. That would leave him with £2.60 an hour, well below the minimum wage of £7.20. The second week, he did 4 days' work. This time, he did get the bonus of £10 per day and, after deductions, earned £228.68. That would leave him with only £4.76 per hour. Amazon Logistics requires all drivers to be self-employed. Self-employed people are meant to be their own boss. They should be able to decide what work they do and how and when to complete it. Workers and employees have less control over how they work, but more rights, like sick and holiday pay and the minimum wage. Drivers for the taxi hire service Uber recently won their case at a tribunal to be classed as workers rather than self-employed. That case was specific to Uber, but what do lawyers look for when deciding on a classification?
So the kinds of tests that we use when we look for an employee or a worker is the person under the control of the person who hires their services? And here with AHC, they claim on the face of the contract that they will determine their own routes, that they will determine their own days of work and their own rest periods. In reality, that's not actually happening.
Look, for example, at how the supervisor reacts when one driver tries to determine his days off.
Well, I'd rather have Sunday off, but I should have next weekend off instead. And then that'll equal up each weekend.
Wait, stop doing your math, mate.
The driver says he only wants to work 1 day in a weekend.
A weekend is a weekend. Its weekend is from today.
No.
Stop looking at me like I'm the stupid one. If you're not, I told you, if you're not finding it, go find another job. Simple.
None of them felt like they were self-employed, because if they rang up one morning to say, you know, I'm sick, it'd be a case of, you have to come in today, you need to cover your route, or there could be a possibility you will be removed off the contract.
That forceful?
Yeah.
Having seen our evidence, including the contract our reporter was given by AHC Services, we asked Professor Novitz whether, in her opinion, he should really be considered self-employed or a worker with more rights.
From the evidence I've seen, which suggests that he would be regarded as a worker or agency worker, he should be getting the national minimum wage.
Why do you think Amazon wants their drivers to be self-employed?
I think Amazon is asking the agency to try to cut costs. So it means that the labour is cheaper, that you place the issue of insurance and also tax liability elsewhere. And we've already seen some evidence that you can be paid remarkably little.
In contrast, Amazon's CEO Jeff Bezos is one of the richest people in the world, worth over £50 billion. Our reporter earned very little money for the amount of time he spent working, but many people we've spoken to who worked for AHC Services told us something even worse than that. Some of the money they earned wasn't even paid to them at all.
You notice £50 missing, sometimes 20, 25. It could be anything. You had a puncture and it could charge you £90 for that. I'm thinking, well, I can't be working it.
There's incentives for certain things of working different days leading up to December, after December, and in total my bonus was probably about £620. I just didn't see a penny.
Jenny and Adam say that in total they're still owed £1,500 by the agency.
Still a lot of money to us.
It's a lot of money to us, yeah, definitely it is.
It's expensive to take this kind of claim further. Inside Out has spoken to 11 former drivers who all say they never received their final payment from AHC Services. So let's say a driver decides to leave. What happens to their pay?
Their money will be held for 60 days, and that's in case, you know, you get any speeding fines through. Any deductions that need to come out of the money will come out of that money, but a lot of the drivers never received their last payment.
Where does this money go?
Who knows? Don't know.
Our reporter queried why he'd been charged for a 4 weeks vehicle hire when he'd only had the van for part of each week. He received no response from AHC Services. In a statement, they said, as independent contractors, AHC provides drivers with the freedom and flexibility to choose when they work and to also work with other companies, which a significant number of drivers take advantage of. They said many of the BBC's allegations are historic and based on isolated examples. Since then, we have made changes to the way our checks are carried out and taken a number of steps to improve our ways of working. But what about Amazon's responsibility in all of this? After all, they set the routes and enlist the agencies to deliver their parcels. So is Amazon creating a culture of exploitation? Well, we've heard that many Amazon drivers have been seeking help.
Across England and Wales, local citizens' advice offices are seeing delivery drivers not being paid their wages, and that can be completely or partially through very huge deductions in their wages. We're also seeing very long hours, and these delivery drivers are being contracted by lots of employment agencies, but they're all saying the same thing: we're not being paid.
Barry Ward worked for a different agency and says they put him under constant time pressure.
Because they're tracking you, if they felt you were lagging behind, they'd be on the phone to you saying, well, you need to step it up a gear. Those were the exact words. In other words, work faster. Then you'd have to go back to the depot. So sometimes I wasn't getting home till 11:30 at night. It wasn't fair on my wife. My wife was disabled and I just couldn't spend any time with her.
Barry says his agency did pay him the money he was owed. Unlike this former driver from Romania, he worked for another agency at Amazon's Avonmouth depot for 6 weeks over Christmas. He wants to remain anonymous because he's making a court claim. His friend Silvio Cristia is helping him with his English.
3 months after he joined the company, he's seen the first money coming to his account, worth of £600 in total, which probably wasn't enough even to pay for the fuel he's used to go to work and come back every day. They still owe him £3,300 at this stage. He's rang Amazon. They weren't very helpful.
Because I was working for Amazon. Amazon need to do something to help drivers.
I spoke to managers at Amazon and I said to them about monies like the Christmas bonuses and that, and they turn around and say you got to deal through your management in the agency that you work for.
What sort of control did Amazon have over what you did?
Very much control. So what Amazon say, we have to do. Like, for instance, if there's a new game that comes out, they'll send an email of, you know, what driver's got how many of these games. Then they'll constantly email us every hour, your driver still has this many on his van. You need to ring him and tell him to deliver these parcels.
So that level of pressure is coming from Amazon, which then gets
pressure. Yeah, which then it goes down and down and down. Amazon are on to us, and then obviously we've then got to be on to the drivers.
I think Amazon bears at least some moral responsibility to ensure that its subcontractors are behaving in appropriate ways towards their workers.
Amazon told Inside Out, we're committed to ensuring that the people contracted by our independent delivery providers are fairly compensated, treated with respect, follow all applicable laws and drive safely. We expect drivers to receive a minimum of £12 per hour before bonuses and incentives. We take this matter seriously and strive for continuous improvement. I've come to Westminster to see what the MP Ian Wright, who's launched an inquiry into working conditions, makes of our investigation.
I'm horrified. Some of the evidence that we heard is disgusting. But in many respects, I'm not shocked, because this is becoming more and more widespread in the economy. We on the Select Committee have looked at some appalling working conditions, and we're seeing in many sectors, growing sectors, a number of practices for workers that are frankly undignified.
Would the Select Committee now think about calling in Amazon?
Absolutely. I really welcome what Inside Out have brought forward here. I've got no doubt that the Select Committee and I would want to bring forward Amazon to our committee to say, what's going on here? How do we ensure that you can protect workers? Why do you call them self-employed? And what are you going to do to make sure that workers' terms and conditions, as laid down by Parliament, are actively enforced?
As online shoppers, maybe we too need to think about our behaviour and whether we really need ever faster and cheaper deliveries. Our investigation has shown some agency drivers for Amazon are under so much pressure they're driving dangerously on our roads and working illegally long hours. It's clear something needs to change before someone dies for the sake of a parcel.